Welcome to this Considered Opinions podcast.
I'm Dougal.
And I'm Celia. Thank you for joining us. Today I want to talk about balance. It's something that's been coming up a lot lately in conversations. People are feeling overwhelmed, and I think it's an important thing for us to maintain for longevity in whatever it is that we're doing.
Funnily enough, balance or moderation, or the old-fashioned term temperance, it was actually one of the original 4 virtues of the Stoics. They had 4. Moderation, courage, justice, and wisdom. In moderation, it is that idea of keeping a balance, of not going too extreme in any one direction.
It's something that's been around for a long time. The Stoics recognize the value of it. But it's a healthy thing for us as human beings to cultivate in ourselves. We need to remember that we are a person first, and we need to keep things human-sized. And balance enables us to do this. I heard somebody say that they were working really hard at a good cause, but they felt like a hamster on a wheel, and they'd got to such a fever pitch of giving everything
just
that they
running
had.
and running.
And they said, I don't know how to get off this wheel.
It reminds me of some advice that I had from a lecturer. It was something that he said that I'll never forget, and it was basically, it doesn't matter if you win the rat race, you're still a rat. And so it's trying to get a bit more meaning than just simply feeding the machine, simply turning the wheel.
Well, you said something interesting to me the other day, and you said our society is set up to consume people. We live in a consumerist society, and it's set up to consume people.
Yeah, it is.
Burn them out and spit them out at the end.
Yeah, the corporate environment is definitely like that, where so much is expected of you. And it's so unrelenting. I mean, they talk about work-life balance, but it's really lip service.
And I think that's what I mean about human-sized, that the corporate environment that you've just talked about is not human-sized. You're not allowed to have human needs and feelings and
frailties and idiosyncrasies.
Idiosyncrasy, that's a good way of putting it, yeah.
Yeah, well, this is where, like, I love it with the kids, is especially when they're young, they're such characters. And a lot of the education system and university and the corporate is designed to drum out people's characters.
I remember growing up, used to joke, people coming out of university, it's just another cookie cutter. Give me a cookie cutter, I'll cut out another one.
Yeah.
And I was like, whatever. But I think actually it was probably more spot on than I gave it credit for at the time. So if we are going to be looking at balance and how to achieve that in our lives, if we've got ourselves to the point mentally and habitually, because I think being a hamster on the wheel is a habit that you've cultivated.
Yes.
If we get ourselves to that point, how do we go about starting to reintroduce some balance into our lives?
We've been habituated to it. Maybe it's new habits, but changing habits takes time. You have to form new, more healthy habits.
It does take time, and it takes commitment. One of the things that we have naturally as humans, we have rhythms. We have the circadian rhythm.
Yes.
We have the rhythm of the seasons, and taking time to just slow down and observe those things around us, giving ourselves time for all the different things, for sleeping, for looking around you, and taking time to, they say take time to smell the roses, but really just to take time to take a breath and look at the goodness that you've got around you. That's a good first step to restoring balance.
There's a couple of things that you're talking about that reminds me of. One is the practice of having a day of rest. And that feeds into that ability to slow down, because some people really, really struggle to have a day where you do nothing. But it's actually good to make yourself do nothing. A similar sort of thing would be we're addicted to our phones. Actually, even if you're not talking about a day of rest, maybe even just a fast, having a fast from tech would be a very good one.
It's funny. I know somebody who has decided that Sunday is their phone-free day. And they've said it's one of the best things. They feel so refreshed afterwards.
Yes.
Having that time away. Actually, that plays into another thing of letting your mind rest. And if we are constantly bombarded in our modern society with the 24-hour news cycle, we're constantly bombarded with information. And then it's harder for us to go, do you know what, I'm going to take a break. But the question becomes, if I don't read about this news until tomorrow, what's going to happen?
Yeah, well, it's not going to end.
And that's a really good thing for us to remember, is that this spheres of influence.
If the information, knowing the information is not actually going to change your course of action, why gather the information in the first place?
Yeah.
So if we're imbibing all of this news feed, and information, but what are we actually going to do with it?
And I think that's an important thing to do with balance.
Yes.
Take your time to be, but also consider your spheres of influence. And there are good causes that you will have to say no to, because nobody can do everything.
You can't do everything, yeah.
That's the hard part, is the making the choice of what needs doing now and what needs me. So there was a time I was working for a very good cause, but I noticed my children suffering. Yes. And so I have to make that choice that at the moment they have to be the priority. And
that's what you're meaning by spheres of influence, is you've got to look after yourself, not in a selfish way, but you've got to make sure that you're
putting your oxygen mask on.
It's like on the plane where they say put your oxygen mask on yourself before you try and help others, because if you're not okay, then you're no help to anyone else.
Yes.
But then the next ring is your immediate family. Then it's your friends, close friends. Then it's your acquaintances and community, then the wider nation. As Jordan Peterson puts it, he talks about, tidy your room. He's talking about your spheres of influence. Start from the inside and work out. And too much these days, you see it in the rich and famous, that they are too busy trying to control other people, and their own personal lives are a mess.
So balance is a lot to do with priorities. It's a lot to do.
Yeah, so habits and priorities. We've actually got a couple of ideas there for people to help cultivate their balance, or to maintain their balance in life. We've talked about, first off, establishing new habits.
Good habits.
Good habits. And we've also talked about having a look at your priorities and
recognizing that you can't do everything. It's like the quote that they say, you can have it all, just not all at once.
Yes.
You can do it all, just not all at once. And remember that you're a human being.
Yeah.
Not a human doing.
I think it's also key to remember that a lot of the people who make it to the top are highly unbalanced. They're actually not in a particularly good position, even if they're famous or super wealthy or whatever it is.
It's funny though, they need the adoration of those around them to make what they've sacrificed worth it. They need people saying to them, you have something to envy.
And that's what drives them to get more and more of whatever it is that they're craving. So if it's the adoration, they're craving that adoration, so that drives them more and more to cultivate their fame, or they're obsessed with stuff.
They say there are two ways to be happy, either to accumulate more and more, or to be happy with less.
To be happy with less. So is that a third one then, is actually to take some time to contemplate and think about things? Here's another old saying. We're full of sayings today. Sometimes I sits and thinks, and sometimes I just sits.
And that's okay?
And that's okay.
Thank you for joining us for this Considered Opinions podcast.
We look forward to seeing you again next time. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.